All right, welcome to the Golden Glory Podcast, the bi-weekly MMO show that dives beneath the surface, asks the hard questions, and uncovers how you, the player, can maximize your impact in-game. Our current focus is the upcoming MMORPG from Artcraft Entertainment, Crowfall. This is episode 11, a new bread of online gaming. We are broadcasting live Tuesday, April 28th, 2015, and today's bakers are Anhrez the Economist. What have you been doing this past week, Anhrez?
You know, I've been playing some Team Fortress 2, and I've been enjoying it. God, I'm bad. I'm thinking of actually streaming it as a kind of public service announcement of when you think you're doing awesome and ranking up kills, you may be killing something as bad as me. So you should probably just calm back down because you're really probably not that good. So yeah, it's been enjoyable though. I've been that and been following the forums. The forums been really kind of hopping lately.
Nice. And Aerowolf, the virtuous hero. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I've been lately. I have been keeping up on my little garrison, logging in for like in WoW. I've been logging in for like 15, 20 minutes doing the. I did a looking for raid finally for the first time. I actually got to wherever you need to be to get into looking for raid. Like I think item level, what is it, 615 or something like that.
Yeah,
and 615 for basic. Yeah.
And apparently it was the short one because we were in and out. So I didn't get anything, but okay, that was looking for raid. It's my first time I'd ever done it. Other than that, I have been playing a little bit of WildStar, but really I've been back into Diablo. I've kind of got the Diablo 3 bug again. Yeah, so I've been playing some of that too. So
are you doing the season 3 thing, or are you just playing?
It's hard for me to get away. I love the Barbarian, and it's hard for me to level up another one because I like my main character so much. So I've been just building up Paragon levels. I've tried some seasonal, but I haven't really stuck with it. But other than that, that's pretty much all I've been doing. Still on the wagon with the health and fitness thing.
Good for you.
Hopefully, I don't annoy too many people on Twitter with that stuff. But the support keeps me going. So I appreciate all the encouragement. # healthy gamer.
Go healthy gamer.
That's it.
All right, and I'm Chief Sarkhan, the completionist. This past week, I've been kind of busy with wargaming games. I've been playing World of Warships. Been streaming. I actually successfully streamed and uploaded videos to YouTube. It's been a while, so my fans are probably in system shock because they're like, whoa, what's this new video stuff you got going here? And World of Tanks Generals.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been doing that too. It's been fun. I moved up one tier and I can't win a game to save my life, but at the starter tier I was kicking ass and taking names.
World of Tanks Generals card game is phenomenal. It's addictive.
It's hard.
I love playing it. I mean, most of the time you can get in a match pretty quick and you can play 1 or 2 games and then you can hit the road. It's just such a fun way to play it. World of Warships I've been really enjoying too. A lot different game, but it's been exciting, and I happen to have a bunch of beta keys I just can't seem to give away. But you know, hey.
Someone just ping him. Direct send.
Hit me up if you're
direct DM or something on Twitter, and he'll get you a beta key. It's fun. You can come in and kill me.
Yes.
It's I can lose on any team, American, Russian, German. I'm an equal opportunity route.
All right, sounds good. I've also been doing the healthy gamer thing there. Been a little rougher start for me than probably for Mike, but hey, healthy gamer, we're going for it. It's time to get back to being able to do basics. But enough about us. You want to hear about games. So why don't we hit the news, Mike?
All right, from the G&G News Desk, here is the latest in Crowfall news.
I love that voice you do.
That's my news voice.
Welcome
to G&G News Desk. All right. Stretch goal has been achieved, of course, since our last episode. We found out that nearly $100,000 in pledges have come in since the Kickstarter, and hiring a graphics programmer has been unlocked. Woot! So we're going to see an additional graphics programmer to help the game have that look that they're going for. The next stretch goal coming out is going to be localization. We're looking at the Italy, France, Germany. They're going to spread as far into possible through Europe as possible. That particular stretch goal is going to be at 1.94 million. Currently, they're at 1.86. So at the current pace, could be a month, could be less until we see that stretch goal. But the next one is even more exciting. As exciting as getting more and more people in, more languages in. The idea of getting the final world bands into the game. So we're talking at a $2 million mark. J. Todd Coleman shared that the Shadow and the Bane Circle rule sets will be added to the game. So we're going to have a complete set of bands into the game when it comes out. That is at the $2 million mark. Again, we're currently sitting at 1.86 million. So a little ways to go, but it's definitely within reach, especially with the packages that they have available now. I'm very curious about what kind of further and future marketing we're going to get, but for now, it's well on its way. Backer badges since we had our last episode. So now you can go to the official Crowfall forums and display your badge. So my little blue crab is sitting underneath my profile, boldly proclaiming Sapphire.
Sapphires.
I did see one bloodstone.
Did you?
Ooh.
I did. I actually have a secret. I have a list that I'm keeping in my Google Docs of all of the because I just don't know if they're all going to show it because of the attention, because I just wanted to type /bow.
No, absolutely. It's like, hey, I hear you're going to have dinner with
We're not worthy.
J. Todd
We're not
and Gordon. Can I send you a couple of questions?
Or it may be another big name person, developer, something supporting the game, and they're incognito and they don't want to let the cat out of the bag. So because you can display any backer reward from where you were to below. So they could have the little top hat going, supporter, so they could have anything showing. Sure. But I did see one bloodstone. I did take that player's name down because I'm very curious as to how many we're going to see on the forums.
Got to have someone to be, earliest of earliest access. The only better access is for us to have Blitzdev download a cat video that's got a Trojan horse on it, so we can desktop. Other than that, no one else that we know is going to have any earlier access than the person that you found that you wrote down their name.
Yeah, let me write that down. No cat videos from Anhrez. All right,
avoid the cat videos, people. Is what I'm saying.
I would probably say any video from Anhrez. let's cut the chase, right?
Exactly. So now, since the backer badges did show up on the forums, they did bump up the size a little bit, which is nice. Yeah. So
they look a little more distinctive now. I mean, if you were really looking for them, you'd make it, but now it's like you can actually, it kind of makes sense.
Well, at first when you looked at them, you were like, is that amber? Is that gold? And then you realize you could just hover over the...
And it'll tell you. I didn't realize that for a bit.
Well, at first it didn't. You had to right-click it, copy URL, and then paste it into the browser. I heard this. I'm not so geeked out or so nerdy that I would actually do that, but... But then they made it so you could hover over and you could see the color. So in the official forums, if you haven't yet, you can show your true colors, show off your badge there on the forums. And then, of course, we have today's update, which is the campaign modules FAQ,
I got questions.
which is a pretty meaty update. That's going to be one of our main topics today, so I won't talk much about that. But we were given a very nice video featuring Dave Greco, giving some commentary over the drawing of the Templar female painting. He's, of course, the lead artist and does a lot of the concept art. But other than that, that is all we have from the G&G News Desk. On with the show.
All right. So today's show is called A New Bread of Online Gaming, and I bet you're wondering why.
I'm not.
Well, you're not. You were in the conversation.
That's true. That's why I'm not really worried about it.
So we were having this offline prepare for the show discussion we always have.
Bouncing ideas off each other left and right.
We bounce ideas constantly, and we talked about a new breed of online gaming.
Well, there's because we're looking for the catchphrase.
Yeah, the
one of the
catchphrase
conversations. Yeah, one of the conversations has been, because it was like it's like Game of Thrones meets EVE Online or whatever, and a lot of people have been like, well, can't you come up with something better or different? And Todd's like, well, let's think about it. And so we were brainstorming some catchphrases for Crowfall.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that catchphrase, when it got tweeted out by Mike, he stole the new bread of online gaming, turned into its own set of catchphrases.
Yeah, so
I turned my head and I've got like 18 to 20 replies. Chrissy, a bunch of other people all chiming in with bread-related puns.
It was
I
so
didn't mean
hilarious.
bread.
Life, it was all over the place. I'm like, because my
It was a typo.
It makes a ding, and I'm sitting there on a conference call for work, and I keep hearing this ping, ping, ping in the background, and I'm like, what's going on now? Oh, witticisms. I see that.
It was so hilarious. I mean, they were
funny.
just one after the other. Crowfall is a new bread of online gaming. All other games are stale. That was pretty
Bitwise.
good.
That was
Bitwise.
John
Yeah,
Wiesman from. He was the UI guy at WildStar. That was his.
It's hilarious.
And then
all of the
Chrissy
games
was
are
on a
stale.
roll. Get that? Get that?
Yeah.
Roll.
Nice.
With don't loaf around and get involved with Crowfall.
Oh, boy.
Or
Oh, boy.
be among the upper crust and back Crowfall. Oh, yeah. The hits just kept on rolling.
I was just waiting for someone, this giant hook to come off stage and pull the tweeters slowly back behind the curtain from the old,
Yeah, anyway, just the wonderful fun things we do when we're not doing the show, but we had to share so you understood the title. So, anyway, let's jump right in with our topic 1, which is what determines the rules of the campaign, which was the FAQ. We figured it was a good topic to discuss our points of view based on what they said. So, we start off with what determines the rules is 2 major categories, the attributes and the models. And I thought this was a very interesting take on how you design your campaign, but it still leaves a ton of questions. And the number one for me is, who picks them to start a campaign? How do they determine that out of the thousands of players who are online when it's time to kick off a new campaign? That's my first question.
Yeah,
Who gets to do it?
I would pivot off that and say I thought of that too, and I also thought a while back they were talking about how they can get away making a game for X amount of money because they're avoiding PvE content and the worlds are generated, and this helped bring some of that discussion in my mind into focus. Because if I'm randomly taking some things from column A and column B, I'm generating new content, on cycle, but I'm not having to code new content to make that happen. So like you said, Chief, who selects that rule set? Is it going to be a set ones and then based on popularity, based on death counts, whatever. There's a lot of, especially some of the more nuanced things related to import and export rules. I mean, that can get touch and go. I think.
Yeah, because if you look at it, you said the A and B.
Yeah.
Only A is required. B are completely optionals that stack on top of A.
But change the flavor.
Something.
But change the flavor of A, and maybe can be used as a carrot and a stick based on the amount of people they're seeing jumping into world rule set A versus world rule set B. If too many people are going into the dregs and not enough people are going to God's Reach, maybe they can spin something out of optional column B to make God's Reach more palatable or more exciting to bring people in.
Yeah, because not everybody's going to like carrot bread.
That's true.
What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, these attributes are very interesting, and I think it's very smart to have these attributes that at the beginning. Okay, so we're going to create a campaign map. Let's fill out these attributes, and then let the campaign be procedurally generated. So that's a very smart, and I'm glad that already this early they've already talked about the attributes that they're going to have. My questions come into, what's the range of possibilities here? So, and this is a question obviously the devs will have to answer. For example, how large is the world? Well, what's the maximum size? What's the minimum size? What would make you determine a campaign that would be smaller? Would it be a shorter campaign? Would you want a shorter campaign to have a smaller map? Because you're if everybody's so spread out, you want to make sure that there's engaging combat and people are fighting and there's strategy and all that fun stuff. So what's going to affect the size of the map? What triggers the end of the campaign? What are the different options? Is it you've killed everybody, last man standing?
Right.
Obviously, they've talked about the point system that they're going to have. My biggest, and I have mixed feelings about this particular one. I'm curious what you guys think about this one. I know there's import-export rules. We've heard about all that. The magic level and the archetype restrictions.
Yeah, that...
Because if my main character, and maybe this is where alts are going to be more popular than maybe I'm thinking, but if I'm a magic user, why would I go to a campaign that restricts magic? Or
right.
if there's archetype restrictions, okay, centaur only. Well, what if my main is not, does that mean, hey, let's try this out. Let me roll a centaur, but I want to roll an off character and have that character in there for 3 months or 2 months. It's not quite clicking in my mind yet as far as how appealing that would be for MMO players. So I'm not sure. I'm just curious about how that's going to work.
I think, though, when we talked about, and this comes back to something that was dropped in, do we see some of these being used in the quote-unquote tournament rule set? So are all of these the possible moving cogs, but maybe are not as common? Yet when I look at things like magic level and archetype restrictions, boy, that to me has a flavor or a tinge of tournament rule sets where they're specifically designed for A, B, C, or D, very restrictive, maybe a shorter rule set, some sort of introduction. Hey, we're underpopulated with Ganetians. I'm not sure how that could happen since they're the greatest type known to man. But hypothetically, if there was not enough Ganetians on there, they could say, hey, we're going to have a Ganetian tournament. Since it's built into their rule set already, it's very easy for them to spin up a new world without any custom coding. So in my mind, what jumped to me was magic level and archetype restrictions as maybe possibly flavored back to the tournament discussions that they had earlier, kind of during Kickstarter, etc. And they just happened to cut and paste out of their entire list of options for spinning up rule sets. And maybe those, because again, like you, I'd hate to think that I've got a 6-month campaign where I can't use my main. I have to start something up from scratch. Even I've been doing all this work on the previous 9-month campaign I was on, and I got to set them off and set them on the shelf and let my main get dusty because I can't get to the dregs because now the dregs is specific restrictions. That would bother me.
Frankly, do you think these are going to be more like built for alts if your main doesn't happen to be that, or I mean, what do you think about that?
So I looked at those two questions as more of what is in the campaign that you may be against, less than the player restrictions of who can join the campaign. So while there's not a huge PvE element, I looked at the levels of magic could be how many thralls are potential to be found and captured, how many potential fast transit type systems are there, how many vaults are, those are all considered kind of magic-based type tools that are in the campaign. And I was thinking, okay, well, if the magic level is really low, your odds of finding really powerful thralls are probably really low. Or you can use less guards on your keeps that you're trying to protect. You have to have players fill that role because you aren't allowed to have as many magical fill-ins. So that's kind of what I looked at the magic level. And the archetype could be very similar. It could be player-based, but maybe it's not so to say that archetype can't come. But what it says is we can only have 20 of each. And then after that, we can't get any more of that archetype. You have to fill in the rest of your team. Say it's a 40-man campaign that's a week long. well, you can only have 5 of each archetype or whatever it may be. I don't think there would be any campaign that would say you can't bring a centaur at all, because just like you said, unless you're forcing alts, it's not going to be very popular, and it's not going to happen very often.
Yeah, I think that's what they are talking about. I think,
makes
in
sense.
fact, I've heard them. I can't recall when or how, but I can recall them mentioning, what if we did a centaur only campaign, or what if we did something like that. So I think they are talking about campaigns that are race restricted.
Well, I think it can work, but I think, like Anhrez was saying, it's probably going to be more team oriented. A guild on guild situation where they want a campaign and they limit it. It's a challenge mode. It's a tournament type mode. Just a random campaign. It probably would work if it's a very popular archetype.
Yeah, I would also say, though, if they wanted to do, again, I keep coming back to tournaments, but that's what's not necessarily tournaments, but let's call it boutique rule sets or world spin-offs. It's like every character coming in is level 1. Choose your centaurs, let's go. Everyone coming in is not level 1, but everyone is a fresh character, and it's hardcore rules. You die and you're out. Those type of things are great, and I do think that maybe archetype specifics could work in that type of piece.
And I agree with you, and I think the fact that they're building in the screws to do it, gives them the flexibility to try anything. And over time, we're going to figure out which ones work and which ones don't. And the fact that they have 8 different screws that they're talking about just for the base style attributes doesn't say you have to use all of them, but you have 8 variations of combinations you can use without even throwing modules on top of it. I mean, the gambit is out there, and I agree with Mike. The map size and the length of duration, I don't think those will be tied together, but they provide a lot of flexibility, because I think it'd be really cool to have a very small map but a long duration, because that means that's going to make the PvPers that just want to instantly be pounding on each other's face happy. But those campaigns that are longer, that have a whole lot of map, might be the more strategic type players, resource heavy, resource light. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios for every single widget that they built into that's automatically procedurally generated. I'm excited. And we haven't even started talking about modules yet.
Now, here's another question I have about the attributes. So my question is this. At what point do these attributes determine which band that the campaign belongs in? For example,
they don't.
Maybe.
So they don't. So basically, we could have, for example, death penalty. When a player dies, do their items decay? If so, how much? What are the looting rules on death? So Franklin, what it sounds like, what you're kind of thinking is that we could have something in one of the bands that are far out, that would typically be a less risky band, or the rewards, but still have full looting, or still have full item decay.
Right. The way I understood the bands worked, based on the FAQ, is that it determines, for lack of a better term, the number of teams. Right? So you have the 3-on-3 as the top band. It's always going to be 3 separate teams, whether they're factions or guilds or whatever. And then you have all your attributes that can be applied to it. Now, typically, we were earlier thinking, well, the higher up you are, the less penalty from death you're probably going to have. I'm thinking now that that's not the case. I think that's a screw that you can turn on, and you could actually go down to the dredges and maybe not have it so punishing, but still be a free-for-all, because that's your free-for-all band, right? In some respects. I may be off mark, but that's kind of the way they explain these widgets of attributes. Yeah. Now, you can make it very punishing in a 3-person or a 3-faction band.
Well, yeah, that I think based on these attributes, if these attributes have no bearing in determining which band the campaign ends up in, you're exactly right. You're exactly right.
I think it's going to go the other direction. I mean, I know that they don't state it operantly, but they were very clear that the concept of the rule sets was to cast a wide net of having a lot of people being engaged. So, though they may appear on every band, I would think that there would be some sort of throttling mechanism to make sure that out of the 6 campaigns that are running, 5 aren't full loot, full death, hardcore. Because then you're going to have certain, realm of players that want lower risk versus higher risk. And so, like they said, the farther you go out, the higher risk you get. I realize that each rule set's, it sounds like it's possible, but for all we know, there's going to be a point system where if you choose loot at 50%, by default, it's going to be on the last 3 rings of the rule set. If your loot rules are 0 to 30%, by default, you're going to come into the first 3 rings. And if you expand that risk out, it's just going to change what ring it falls into. It doesn't mean it can't be chosen, but it sounded like from their initial descriptions of the rule sets that they wanted to cast a wide net. So I would think that they'd be careful not to limit, too many drag-like flavors at the same time.
Interesting.
Well, I think that's a possibility, but I also think what they might do is limit it to where you don't have 2 exact sets of attributes going on at the same time. So
Sure.
if a new campaign was being created and there was already a 50% loot, you wouldn't get another 50% on the table to start until that one finished. So it'd have to be whatever the next level was, 30 or 10 or whatever, And it may be band driven. It may be total driven, I would think that they would never want to have 2 campaigns exactly the same that just happen to start at different times. Because it's going to be, like you said, everybody's going to try and jump into one and completely avoid the other, and now you have this campaign.
And the people that didn't jump into the one that's running right now, there was a reason why they didn't want to jump into it. So why create another footprint for people to avoid? So I have to say this, though, about the something else, and this just ages me on the design side. The added divine summoning system, can I just say Ivis and Lockholar? Can I just throw that out there from Aldrich Valley? Back in the real days where you would actually be in Aldrich Valley for days and everyone would collect a bunch of crap and we'd all run there and we'd summon the giant tree guy or the big guy and we'd all march him down to the thing, and then the other group would rally and they would actually kill this god we summoned, and we'd be like, damn it, I just wasted all the blood, the soldier's blood. I'm gonna start over. I find that hearkening back to some of my older, more fond memories of long-term struggles with risk and reward for summoning. And I like it. I like the concept.
So yeah, I mean, I remember those days as well. Not too fondly, only because sometimes I would go to bed and wake up in the morning and the same match is going on. Yeah. But obviously, the team has talked at length about how you just don't know what's going to happen when you log in. You just don't. I mean, you can have, with this game, you can have the best plans in the world. Sure. And then all Leroy Jenkins is going to break loose. Something, we could do the math, we could figure it all out, and we're not going to know. So, but what's interesting to me with this whole thing is that that really there's no precedent. There's nothing we can say, okay, name a game that's done this. I can't think of one.
No, yeah.
I think that's why it's such a it's such a mind-boggling thing so much for us, and even Shadowbane players haven't seen this.
No,
the rule sets, yeah, the organic rule sets, and again, since if you can win, and let's say it's a 6-month, it's set up as a 6-month, doesn't mean it has to run 6 months. You can win it before 6 months happens, right? So, like you said, going to bed and coming back in, maybe for that first month, you're feeling pretty good about it, but if somebody's rolling face over someone else, after a while you're going to be thinking, God, this could end at any time, and what does that mean to my export rules, my loot, etc. It's gonna be an interesting concept.
Yeah, very interesting. And of course, then now let's add another layer. If that doesn't give us enough flexibility, let's go ahead and add another layer. The modules.
Yeah.
The modules are very interesting. I mean, they almost call the game mods, but we don't want to confuse people with user interface mods.
Right.
But the fact that basically, in some respects, they can do the GM. Let's harken to D&D. They go, you know what? Let's create a scenario like this. And they throw in a game mod. And now your regular campaign rule sets are tweaked or modified. And, there are a couple examples, aerial...
caravans, that's
aerial
hilarious.
caravans that are aerial, and you want to shoot them down.
That's hilarious.
That's
what
awesome.
crafters are rushing through the world, gathering as much as they can, maybe to set up ballistas, and then all you're doing is playing old-fashioned duck hunt, trying to get as many people logged on. Your scouts out grabbing trees, your other miners out getting materials, and you're just playing catapult like a duck hunt, trying to keep their guys from landing on their base where your team is still taking your pilots and trying to land. That would be a hoot. I
was going to launch Ganutians up there to try and capture it in the air. Why waste a good vehicle?
That's true. We're naturally nimble. We'll always land on our feet.
It may be just a mile down the road.
Absolutely. But no, I love the concept that they're creating mechanics to tune the enjoyability of the game. So they talked about the mechanics up above of what, by definition, this is what the rule sets are type thing. But here they've given themselves some flexibility. They've already talked about some of the stuff that they've done, and they've talked about future modules that they could do where it really is this is the spice, the flavor, the pop of some of the campaigns that make one campaign with the exact same rule sets from 6 months ago completely different, right? So when they talk about the ability for replayability is something that they have at a lower cost to develop, I think this is one of the things that they were talking about, because you could have exactly every single rule set exactly set the same, yet change one of these new game mods, game's completely different.
Yeah.
Well, I equate this to their version of a DLC that we never see. It's just stuff that they can do in the background at any time and go, hey, watch this.
Yeah. You guys thought it was so easy last time, huh? I could see J-Todd walking in going, okay, we're going to do this again. Someone flip the switch. No, I mean it. I'm tired of these guys. They're telling it how everything was so easy. You turn on the red button, boom, completely different. Now, every thrall has armor, and every thrall you have to not just capture with a gemstone, you have to beat into submission and subdue, and they can actually do damage to you or something. So, and again, some of these we won't even know when we go in, right? I mean, you're not going to know the mod until you choose. You know the rule sets, but when we look at what it says in the bans, do they really go into much detail on what the game mod will be?
Everybody say hi to Pan. She finally arrived. Hi, Pan.
Hi, Pan.
Hello. Here's what I want. I want a mod to be the Breadstone campaign.
Nice.
Yes, we've coined it.
Since we've got this whole bread theme going.
That's it.
That's where the baking discipline rune will need to be activated.
Yes.
And
it's a new holiday in game, right? The breaking of bread with your enemies.
Oh, there we go. The breaking your enemies with bread.
Nice.
That works too,
I would rather break the enemies with bread.
Nice.
It's stale, launch it at them.
No
Siege
weapons.
warfare.
Fight with bread, like the French bread sticks or
Sticks.
the.
So if you harden it up, we carve it.
That's right. So James, you talked about the divine summoning system. And,
Yes.
And it does remind me of that that summoning of the boss and the risk versus reward. What's interesting is this is this something that you're, because I'm thinking, like, if you think about Heroes of the Storm, some of those maps, you want your team to be able to summon the big dudes that can go attack the enemy base, and whoever gets it suddenly has the advantage. And I can definitely see a mechanic like that working in a campaign. I do think, though, and I may disagree with you just on this part, James. I think personally, unless I missed it, I think before you go in, you're going to know what the mods are going to be.
Absolutely. I was just saying on what we've seen so far when we look at the original map.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
you know
it doesn't
what I mean?
mention them.
It doesn't really mention them because they hadn't really said much. On the other hand, when they saw the video campaign, the Bloodstone rules, etc., they were very clear about it. Yeah. But when they moused over the map of the worlds, they told you loot rules, import rules, etc. So it's just going to be interesting how they let us know, which goes back to one of our early episodes saying, well, how much do I know about a campaign before I got to pull the trigger and join, right? Do I want to know that my team is getting their face handed to them? Well, you can learn that on the forums. I don't need Crowfall to tell me that my team's losing, because my friends and my guildmates will tell me we're getting crushed. But come on in anyway. But on the other hand, more generically, when the campaign just starts out, well, that's going to be interesting to know how much they will, especially if it's a mod we've never seen before. They may just say, "Oh, it's the siege rule, blah blah blah," and if we've never experienced it as a community, maybe it'll be the first time we see it.
So I was just reading ahead actually, because. No. This is good because my thought was, this is a lot of stuff. This could be really confusing.
Yeah.
And of course, the very next question number 2 in the FAQ is, are there default campaign settings? Because do I really want, as a new player, and I'm just learning all these things, do I want to hover over a campaign and see all of these things and have no idea what any of them means? Or I could just pick normal. And it's nice that there will be some default settings. Okay, this is the normal Crowfall experience.
Get your
These are the These other things are different flavors. You're acquiring your taste for the game. Now, okay, you've done normal, you've won or lost normal. Now you want variety. You want a different experience because that's that's one of the things that happens. Repeated content. So many MMOs. In fact, one of the catchphrases that I thought of that I think I posted it to you guys in there was unplugging the gear treadmill and eliminating the regurgitated content. And Crowfall catchphrase, because ultimately you have to be adding flavors, otherwise things start feeling the same. And it looks like this is totally preemptive. Crowfall is saying we're not going to have that stagnating issue where the maps are even though their maps are procedurally generated and they look different, Diablo to a degree, when you go into a map, it's generated. It's not, the left turn isn't always in the same spot. This thing isn't always there, but it still feels the same to a degree. So I think having these extra flavors, imagine if you're looking for something new or something different and say, hey, let's go into the campaign where we're slingshotting our crafter, or we're slingshotting stuff from one side of the map to another, or we're shooting down, caravans out of the sky. My poor pack pig, my pigs are going to fly, nice. I guess. I don't know.
Nice. But pack Pegasus pigs.
Pack Pegasus pigs. And, just adding that extra flavor is going to be huge for the longevity of the game.
Well, and I think it's interesting because regardless of how normal or how spiced up all of these campaigns get, every situation is going to be different. Because really, there is no end game. We, the players, are the content. And regardless of the rule sets, no two games are ever going to be the same.
Absolutely.
Because regardless of the rule set, what people do is going to be different. The terrain, what you find in each map is going to be different. And it's just all going to play out so uniquely. But the fact that they've already planned for so many different ways to present the scenario is almost like they're ready to just make sure we have enough meat or bread to bite into, regardless of the situation, because once a world dies, you want a different flavor. I love sourdough, but now it's maybe this campaign is wheat, you got to mix it up. And so the fact that they got the modules, they got the attributes, they got the different bands, and then you got your EK.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more do they have to give you in a game where you, the player, are the content? I mean, it's just insane how much they're giving us.
Well, I'm inherently needy as a player, so I have plenty of questions about what I need.
Well, let's just jump right to questions then. What do you got for us?
Well, first things first. One of my questions is: will there be add-ons? And what do you guys think? The boundaries of what the Crowfall team will want to see, whether or not the community, is kicking in add-ons. I know a lot of people feel like, well, there's add-ons, so that means there's something wrong with the UI, or there's add-ons, therefore there's something wrong with XYZ. And I'm not in the mindset of that. I'm in the mindset of, I think add-ons appeal to different types of players. As long as they don't give an inherent advantage, I'm fine with it. I'm just curious. I do feel like this is a game where add-ons could work well. But again, we haven't had a lot of input yet from the Crowfall team yet from the concept of the add-ons. What are your guys' thoughts?
I'll let Franklin go first on this one.
So I'm a big proponent of add-ons that customize how you interact with the game. Don't change functionality of the game. I don't want something that gives me a shortcut to do anything.
Right.
But being the completionist, I love my add-ons that help keep my what would normally be a notepad of notes or a spreadsheet of information at my fingertips without me having to use brain power, as long as it's not a cheat against the system. An easy way to tell what recipes I have, while I'm shopping is a perfectly acceptable add-on to me. Changing the user interface because no two players play the same way.
Yeah.
Even if we sit at a computer, right-handed, left-handed, likes to have the hotbars at the top, likes to have them at the bottom. If the game doesn't inherently let you move UI elements around, you need add-ons to do that, because
or thin them out too, Chief.
Or thin them out. Some people are minimal.
I've seen you stream, and I do like the way that sometimes you minimalize it, because the fact for streaming you like to maximize not only what you see but what people are seeing as you play.
Exactly.
And I do appreciate a minimalistic UI format.
But some people like a cluttered screen, especially if they come from like Eve. They want their screen filled up except a little tiny viewport, It's just different flavors for different folks, and I think add-ons are perfectly acceptable for that. And I don't think the developer should waste the resources to give that many options to people inherently, at least at first, because you're going to find out what is the flavor, what's the most common thing, not to take away from what's developed already, but, if you have the ability to give those tools to the players, they're going to come up with the amazing things that maybe can be incorporated in the game later. That's where the add-on community really shines, is when a game company can recognize something that's been made, that is legal, and bring that in. But there's a fine line depending on what you do with an add-on that can really break a game. So,
Yeah.
Anyway.
My thought on
Only
this, one? Well, multiple thoughts.
Okay.
I'm going to stand in this case very, very. I'm not digging in.
Sure.
But initially, I'm going to stand on the other side on this one, and the reason why is because when I was, of course, we know WildStar has a completely open, totally encouraging of mods and UI mods and player-made mods. And I've been a strong advocate of that for a long, long time. And in a PvP match, I noticed that our healer was constantly getting targeted.
Yes.
And apparently there is a UI mod that will create a series of dots that will show you exactly which player is doing healing. And there's also a UI mod that will show you every quest objective on the map within the draw distance, within anything that you would be able to see with your eyes. So you could speed through the game, literally having every quest book being basically a dotted line on the screen showing you everything is. And in the PvE world, I wasn't too concerned about that, but the implications in PvP, it bothered me a little bit. So I'm not saying that anybody is advocating mods for Crowfall that would allow someone to know who was doing what job. Like, to me, I think the game, you need to fight your fight, you need to do your job. But it scares me to a degree that anybody may be able to lower their difficulty by using mods.
No, that's a good point.
And so to me, I personally feel that even though it is optional to decide whether or not we want to use a UI mod, it is not optional to fight a fight where I'm in hard mode and they're in medium mode, where their difficulty has been lowered because of their add-ons. So now, if it can be done in such a way where mods are doing simply cosmetic things that make the UI work better for you, or you customize your own sound effects. When somebody dies, it does the goofy death noise or something, yeah, or whatever. Like that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. It's just the implications, the gameplay implications, especially in a PvP centered game. There's a lot of risk there. So to me, I'm very, very cautious, and right now I'm cautious enough, nervous enough, where I probably want to hang on let's not focus on bringing in mods yet, and let that be something that we kind of ease into. Maybe that's something that alpha and beta will help us figure out.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
And I think I concur with you there, simply for the fact that keeping this low budget, and there was a couple of points there on the forums, in the chat, that's alluding to this. They probably don't have a UI specialist that would have the time or the energy to build in the hooks to do UI adding at this time.
Yeah, but doesn't Unity already have? They're using a lot of the Unity engine, and by default, the Unity engine has an exposed API library. Whether it's enabled, you're absolutely right. Whether they have someone to put the tunings on it, I don't necessarily, right from my gut, feel like it's necessarily an added cost, because they're not building this module game from the ground up. They're able to use the boundaries of what comes in Unity or not.
Right, but I think the point is you have to have that UI artist, one, turn on those hooks. Then you have to have people test them. And the compounding cost is there, even if you have somebody kind of already doing work and the tools are already there. So is it worth it at this time? I think I agree with Mike. Probably not now. Is it worth adding at some point? Definitely. I think being able to cosmetically change how you interface with the game is an important element in today's gaming market to have available. Now, anything beyond that, well, like Mike was saying, there's a lot of dangers in a PvP game that needs to be considered. But I could see some definite value in some tools helping you do stuff in the EK, or at least knowing what you have available without having to walk to a different thing and open it up and go, oh yeah, I have this. There's potential, but we don't know what they plan to put in the game and available to us yet, so it's still speculation.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So another question here is, I would love to, I know it's early, but I'm an early type of person. So, we've talked about the disciplines. We've seen some pieces. We get a feeling of we're going to know what kind of the crafting and gathering options are planned. I did see dialogue talk about, will certain classes, and I believe they even mentioned it, that certain selections of archetypes are going to have a certain path to a certain, let's call it a crafting or a gathering advantage. But does that also mean the concept of, would there also be a default disadvantage of certain archetypes for certain gathering and or crafting. So my example is, if I have a Forge Master and he, wields an awesome hammer, and of course by default he makes an awesome blacksmith, is he permanently at a huge disadvantage and will flounder as a tailor? Because we don't get a lot of customization of our physical characters, and I realize it's a cost, and I'm all for that. I don't need to spend 2 hours shaping the nose of my tune. But on the other hand, I think long term, I do want to shape the ability of my character to interact with the world and the other player base as I want it to. And so I do have some concerns and or questions related to will certain characters, archetypes, have very limiting advantages and disadvantages related to certain crafting and gathering, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but I think from a character development standpoint, any archetype-specific bonus would just be a layer on top of the advantages and disadvantages system. So you start out with a plus to being a blacksmith.
Right.
But that just affects your initial training. You start out ahead, but everybody that goes into blacksmithing ends at the same point, if there was a max to get to, right? So if you wanted to be a tailor instead of a blacksmith with that archetype, you would just start slower, but you would still end up at the same point. Unless that archetype has some penalty that's permanent that you can't turn off that might affect that. For example, the centaurs, maybe their fingers are too big to use scissors, so they get a permanent -10 to tailoring. Could you still be a tailor? Yes, but you're going to suffer in your assembly of trying to crit, or whatever they call it, or however it's going to work. So I think, yes, there might be some limitations, but I don't think it would exclude a player, if they really wanted to, from doing anything, unless it's written into the story that says they can't. For example, there's no male, what are the assassins with the wings, right?
Phase.
The phase, there you go. I was completely losing my mind on what to call her. But yes, there's no male phase. You want to be a male phase? Sorry.
I think centaurs would make poor ninjas. Yes, but that doesn't mean they can't. But that does not mean they can't make that they'd be poor ninja tailors.
Yes.
So let's make a point here. Centaurs would make horrible ninjas. It does not mean centaurs would make horrible tailors to make clothes for ninjas, I guess is my concept. I know I'm only splitting hairs there, but I think that there's a thin line between min-maxing by choices and getting discipline stones and doing versus already being out of the gate, players just not being able to play their characters to, how they want to play them within a certain range. So, Mike, did you ever play when you started playing WoW back when they actually had racial traits? Did racial traits make any difference versus the choices you made for professions?
Professions? Boy, I don't remember. I thought there was. Well, I thought there was.
No, there are, but I was just curious. Did they make any changes related to, what you chose? So if you chose the,
I just remember undead rogues were terrible.
Yeah,
because they could get out of my stuns. I was a paladin. Like they had a stun break, and it really bothered me because at the time humans didn't have that. But there he is. Yeah, Thomas has got a Tauren. Yeah, Tauren had a bonus to herbalism. That's right.
And so did most everyone just automatically take Taurens into herbalism because you were
at max? It didn't matter because even though technically they were above the max, ultimately it didn't mean that if you wanted to be an herbalist, you had to be a Tauren.
No, you're absolutely right. It just from a min-max standpoint.
You could level faster because you were able to pick plants that normally you would have to pick several more plants first. So it was a little less grindy. So I think the advantages were at the beginning, but I don't think ultimately the end it mattered. As far as Crowfall, I have no idea. So many things in this game are different than what I've ever seen before. It's just I can't relate it to anything I've seen.
Yeah.
A Forge Master, if you're going to be a blacksmith, and you're a serious full-time blacksmith, are you going to want to make a Forge Master? I don't know. I have no idea.
Not enough information yet, but it again, with Blickstaff doing the reference in the article for the MMORPG.com about talking about his hammer and putting a thrall, one of the Smurfs in the hammer. Yes. He automatically, gets, I have a blacksmith awesome of plus awesomeness now in my Forge Master hammer. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I feel like if we're going to see a limiting on the customizations, the surface level customization of characters, I just hope we don't see limitations on the gathering and crafting choices of characters that have long-term repercussions. I guess that's where I'm at.
Well, I'm even hesitant to even get into the conversation of alting, because, for example, for WoW, I made a chart of how many slots you could have on a server, listed every class down, then I listed every craft you could have, and every race you could have, and I made a chart, and I made sure I had a plan that I could have one of every race, one of every class, one of every crafting discipline, somewhere within the limit of 10 characters on the server I could have for a race. And then I just started Xing it in and saying, okay, this person's going to be this class with this trade skill, and filled it all out. And then I went and made 10 characters. Now they've added more races and totally screwed everything all up. But you know what? That's how I did things back in the day. It wasn't so much who got the +5 bonus. There was some in there. What's the end game? Oh, well, if you want to, my wizard, the best thing you could do is have your alchemist stone. So I made potions, right? That was,
right.
So there was some of that choice in there. But, before I even started playing, I had a chart. So please don't do that to Crowfall. Please don't.
He is. He is, Pan. He's sitting there going, Wapner. But if it's, instead of saying Wapner, it's like, crafting.
Crafting.
He is the Rain Man. He is the Rain Man of WoW. You should see his spreadsheets when we were in closed beta for WildStar. We were trading these ridiculous multi-tabbed linked spreadsheets back and forth of every possible. Did you test this one yet? It's like, I'm pretty sure that the people were like going, oh God, Chiefs just sent a spreadsheet attached to an email. Who wants to read it? And everyone's else, not it. Not it. And then whoever didn't show up to the meeting got stuck the testing data from Chief.
See, that's why I hang around with these guys, because I just want to go out and smash things. They just help me. They just help me do it more efficiently and more effectively. Boy, look at what time it is already. So,
I know.
I did want to get to a question that we had last week. We didn't get to, but we really appreciate. Let me get to the right spot here. Natural Nuke on the official forums. He really wants to know our thoughts on how we hope that poisons will work in Crowfall.
This has been a fairly hot topic on the forums, hasn't it?
Yeah, it spiked for a bit and it's calmed back down again. I think initially it got a lot of chatter about people just what-ifing a lot, and then you can only what-if for a certain period of time, and then it kind of cools off again. So maybe if we'll have someone like Blickstev or one of the other devs, who knows, they'll go in there and they'll poke the dialogue with a stick, and then it'll explode again.
So poisons, I mean, there are different applications for poisons, right? Poisons can be damage. Poisons can be motion inhibiting. Poisons can do a lot of different things. I mean,
sure.
I guess, to me, my most common reference for poison is going to be WoW, and that would be a rogue specifically, where you would apply the different poisons to your weapons. Is this the kind of thing they're talking about, or do you think they're talking about something else?
Go ahead, Chief.
Are you muted?
I am muted. I was typing, and I didn't want to hear everybody hear my 4,000
that mechanical
keystrokes.
Keyboard. Clunk, clunk, clunk,
Hey.
clunk, clunk.
So what was the question?
No, hey, I'll jump in real quick. On poison, I've seen it a couple different games. I think it's going to be interesting, one, since we know that there's no NPCs, unlike in other games where you could, gather this as the player and, buy poisons or something from certain vendors, I'm all for poisons. I only because the fact is it creates an ongoing churn. If an alchemy group also creates poisons, then we have somebody who's extremely important in a campaign. The more various people that can use it. I also like the concept of any of AOE based effects on poisons.
Dropping a poison bomb in the middle of a siege. Oh my gosh!
Right. I mean, maybe it takes a while, but maybe I can make a crock pot full of something special and put it in my catapult and send it over across the way. So I see a lot of opportunity for it. Again, we just don't know much.
Right.
Other than, we got that screenshot of what the stats are for a character, it was a while back. And then you start looking at what can the poisons impact on that screen, but maybe, I don't know. I hope it's one of those things where it means something. And back in the day, it used to mean something in WoW. You used to mean something in other games too. Getting someone who is really good at alchemy to create your stuff for you creates a symbiotic relationship between users and crafters. And I'm hoping that they can find a way to bring that in.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with poisons being in the game and used in creative ways. I think of in WoW and we keep talking about WoW because that was the game I played for 9.5 years, right? But engineering used to be a very interesting way to play because there were a lot of things you could do as an engineer that were combat related. You had some extra stuns and you had some extra damage and you had some cool trinkets you could make. I can see something like that, like a discipline rune for poisons for someone who wants to equip. If somebody can be a falconer or a werewolf, why couldn't they be somebody who uses poisons?
Well, I look at the aspects of poisons in the game adding to the strategic value, and more so than necessarily an individual player gets access to poisons. If poisons are going to be something that's like applied to weapons, that should be either done by the crafter or anybody can do it. But if you have siege equipment that are throwing out poisonous gas to clear an area, or you can poison the well of the enemy's keep and now they don't have a fresh water source in their keep and they have to now leave the keep to get water. That's strategic value, if there's a reason for that water there, So there's many ways that you can apply the poison aspect to the game and not so limit it to like in WoW and only the rogues get poisoned. Well, that's kind of boring and trivial. Yeah, it adds to their combat, but that's all they have. So it was kind of a necessity. But in a strategic game like this, there's so many things you could do. You could pretend to be caravanning food supply and you've left it poisoned and you want to get it attacked and they steal your food. And so now you've poisoned the other troops, so now their attack speed is reduced so they're easier to fight. Just so many different things they can do. So I hope they do poison in some way. How they do it and how they make it meaningful is the trick.
Yeah. Well, Blickstev in chat, he said there are lots of ways to make poison fun. And I think that's a perfect summary of the discussion. Guys, it is about that time, gentlemen. We are on the verge of coming to a close here. We do thank all of you out there for joining us tonight. Appreciate seeing Pan and Blickstev in chat today. Always love the Artcraft presence here in our chat. We appreciate the support that you guys give us. And, of course, all episodes are going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel, usually within a day or so of the live broadcast. They'll also be uploaded to our website, the Golden Glory, goldenglorypodcast.com. We also upload our podcast to iTunes. So if you give us a subscribe there, that would be great. And as far as our cast, of course, you can find me on the Twitters at Arawolf, ARAWULF. I also do a little bit of blogging at a website called The Wolf Den. And Anhrez, how do folks find you, sir?
You can find me on the Twitland concept. Anhrez, Anhrez. Hopefully here soon you'll be seeing some of my articles spread here and there. I'm getting excited. I've been building up some articles for Crowfall. Looking forward to launching here soon. But mainly right now, mainly on Twitter and mainly right here. I pop in and out of the forums when I can. There's a lot of good stuff going on. If you guys aren't in Crowfall forums, you really need to be there. The devs are starting to be kind of high touch, making great comments, really interacting with the community. It's such a great, rare time to be able to talk with people in the forums when things are still being decided and great ideas are being tossed around.
For sure. And of course, we do miss Bill. Lethality was not able to be with us this week. But Chief Franklin, how can folks find you?
Well, I am right here on MMORPG.com as a streamer and a writer. So be checking it out here if you want to catch any of my articles. I do one of the Crowfall columns monthly. Plus other stuff. You can find me over on Twitter at Chief_Sarkan. That's a good way to get me. And I also have a blog. It's themmochief.com, where you can find all my past, present, and future ramblings, articles, and guides that I've done over time. Feel free to shoot me a request. I do take them on occasion. But anyway, that's mainly where you can find me. I hope you guys all enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care.
Night all.
Night.